Welcome to the NIHC Global Industrial Hemp Fiber Summit. We are so excited to kick off.
That's Summit Coordinator Rachel Raineri. This is the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. Hi there. My name is Eric Herlock. Welcome back to the show. I was away last week. I was down in Raleigh for the Fiber Summit. And that's what this show is today. We're going to give you sort of a recap.
We have a fast-paced, awesome agenda with speakers who are doing TED-style talks, so you will leave with powerful takeaways.
Powerful takeaways indeed. That's essentially what the show is today, sort of a collection of powerful takeaways from the summit in Raleigh. So I've been to a lot of these hemp events and summits and things in the past few years, and hands down, this was the best one yet. Laser focused, it ran on time, lots of smart and serious people, and not a lot of wingnuts. So today's show is pretty much going to follow the structure of the summit itself. As you heard, there were TED-style talks throughout the summit. And so the show today, first we're going to hear some opening remarks, and then we're going to get into the panel discussion about agriculture. Then we'll move into processing, and then more processing, and then we'll talk about textiles. Then we'll get into building materials and composites. Then we'll talk about the industry value chain, and we'll finish up with a little discussion from clothing brands who are interested in hemp as a material. So there's a lot going on the show today, and this won't be the only episode that I have from my coverage of the event. One of my favorite things to do at hemp events is to walk around and interview people, sort of like Kermit the Frog or Studs Terkel. So I will be publishing a very, very long, possibly a double episode of all of my one-on-one conversations that I had in Raleigh at the summit. Okay, let's get into it. We're going to take a quick sponsor break right now. My travel to Raleigh was sponsored by the NIHC, so thank you to the National Industrial Hemp Council of America for making sure I got there. Our show is also brought to you with support from HEMI, the Hemp Education and Marketing Initiative, and the NHA, the National Hemp Association. So first up was Guy Carpenter.
So why are we here? We're here about industrial hemp fiber. There's a bunch of experts in this room, everybody from agriculture to decortication, to processing and refinement, to scouring, degumming, softening, whatever you want to call it, cottonizing, so that it can be spun into yarn, because we're here to talk about the fiber.
And we did. There was a lot of talk about fiber. Up next was Dr. Andre West from NC State, who wanted to remind us about sort of the power of storytelling when it comes to hemp.
How do you sell wine? You sell wine by telling a story. Where it's grown, what the humidity is, what the morning looks like, what the dew factor is, all these things that how long the grapes stay on the vine. So what I'm challenging you guys is to tell your story. This industry, textiles in general, doesn't do that much anymore. We're all into mass production and doing stuff as a rush. But hemp is not about that. Hemp is not about that. Hemp is about a story. So that's the story we have to tell, is that we have a beautiful product that we've had for thousands and thousands of years. And now we have an opportunity in this country to actually make it into something again.
Well, that makes me feel good about what I'm doing here, because I think what I'm doing here is helping to tell the story of hemp. And the final opening speaker was Patrick Atagi, President and CEO of the National Industrial Hemp Council.
This summit comes at a pivotal moment for our industry. Over the past year, NIHC has been proud to lead international promotional efforts in key growth markets. From recent USDA-supported trade missions in Africa and Peru to strategic engagements in Japan and Thailand. We led a delegation of 30 members and also people from outside the industry, because we are what is called a collaborator, which means that the federal government has chosen National Industrial Hemp Council as a conduit to promote hemp across the board. And again, working together works.
Yeah, and that's sort of the low-key theme of this whole thing, is that working together works. And what this summit was an example of people with work to do who got together to do the work together, to ask each other questions, to help figure things out, to move things forward. So I was psyched to be there. This thing was really well organized, as I mentioned, and they sort of did it in order. And by that I mean we started with farming. We started with agriculture. So that's where we're going to start today. Kicking things off for the first session that focused on agriculture was Dr. David Suchoff. He's the Alternative Crops Extension Specialist and Assistant Professor at NC State.
When we created the lineup of speakers for the ag session, we wanted to kind of emulate what we're doing with this entire summit, in that we want to go through the life cycle.
And so the life cycle starts with the seed, starts with genetics, so it makes sense that we start off with Dr. Larry Smart, geneticist from Cornell University, who introduces us to a new word, idiotype.
The idiotype is our vision as plant breeders of the perfect cultivar.
So it's almost like an abstraction.
What are the traits that we want to combine together? And that's what we do as plant breeders, is identify plants that have these traits that fit into our idiotype. We make crosses and try to combine all of these traits together in one super-de-duper cultivar that meets our vision for a perfect plant.
Yes, he said super-de-duper.
It has to have high yield of bast. If you're Guy Carpenter, you want high yields of bast. You don't care about the herd. But there are also a lot of herd companies out there. All of you are going to have a little bit different item to add to our idiotype. But that's why we need to have these meetings between breeders and processors and growers to make sure that everyone gets their favorite thing added on to the idiotype.
Next up was Terry Moran from Kanda Seeds, who reminded everybody that this is agriculture and relationships with farmers are important.
Agriculture is a handshake business, and it's based on mutual respect, it's based on trust. And the seed industry especially, it's a very small world out there.
And I think he means that everybody knows each other, so watch what you say. Next up was Glenn Kayll, CEO of the Hemp Plastic Company, who talked a lot about what's at stake with plastic.
We have a plastics problem. There's about 369 million tons of plastic getting produced every year, and it's growing. And why is that? Because plastic is amazing. Think about if you take plastic out of the market, and you have the same consumption levels, you're going to be using something else. It might be textiles, it might be wood, it might be aluminum, it might be glass, it might be something else. So there's a reason why people use plastic. And so what we try to do when we look at this market is we try to say, let's reduce the impact of that. Let's see if we can find a way inexpensively, in volume, to reduce the impact of this plastic problem. Hemp is an incredible carbon sequesterer, 1.6 tons of CO2 for every ton of hemp. So if I pull out carbon-emitting fossil fuel plastics and I put in carbon-sequestering hemp, I get a very significant 35 to 65% reduction in CO2 emissions.
Now, these presentations were about 12 to 15 minutes long each, and they were jam-packed with powerful takeaways, as Rachel said in the intro. And these sessions will be published on NC State's website in a few weeks. They are definitely going to be worth checking out because they are jam-packed full of nuggets of wisdom and all kinds of stuff that you want as you build your hemp business. And really, the lineup was kind of like a who's who of the hemp industry right now. Case in point, the next speaker was Melissa Nelson Baldwin from South Bend Industrial Hemp in South Bend, Kansas.
South Bend Industrial Hemp and Performance Crop Research, we are data collection and ultimately producing repeatable outcomes and results over time. Okay, so our goal using data is to minimize the variables and be able to produce repeatable results. And from an agricultural standpoint, corn's got 100 years on us. So we can't expect to make change overnight. And that's just, again, brick by brick, laying the foundation. I gave 100% every day, and sometimes that 100% looks a little bit different. But ultimately, it is going to lay that foundation for what you are building.
Next up was North Carolina regenerative farmer Rick Brown, who you might know from the Patagonia film Legacy Regenerated from a few years ago, which told the story of Rick Brown buying the farm that his family had been enslaved on years ago.
Industrial hemp has been one of those rotationary crops for us that we've been growing. Our legacy is based on regenerative agriculture. My main thing was to focus on fertility. Industrial hemp was one of those crops. We've seen and documented the increased sightings of quail and other wildlife and various vegetative species as well. So what we've seen is by growing and rotating this crop, it also adds to the wildlife benefit.
After Rick Brown was Lancaster County, Pennsylvania's favorite regenerative hemp farmer, Steve Groff.
What is regenerative? Again, it comes down to two main areas when we talk about practices. It's less tillage and more cover crops. Or I could say less soil disturbance and more life in the soil year-round.
Oh, I love watching Steve Groff in action, an evangelist of diversity in the soil. It's so great to see him. He is just full of energy, and I'm glad that he was there. The next session on Tuesday morning sort of picked up where the agriculture session left off, and that's processing. This is where the plant becomes the product. Trey Riddle from IND HEMP moderated the session, and he opened up with a simple truth that speaks to the whole summit's underlying message.
We got to connect those dots, right? It doesn't work for everybody. It's not going to work for anybody. And that starts all the way from seed propagation up to end use application, cost and performance metrics. So hopefully we'll talk a little bit about that today in some of the panels.
Trey had just praised Larry Smart's work on genetics from the Ag panel earlier, but he made it clear good genetics are only part of the picture unless we build a system where each part supports the next, from growing to decortication to fiber spec to product design. We're just spinning our wheels. The first speaker of this session was Sandra Marquardt of On the Mark Consulting. She takes the systems view seriously. She asks us to look upstream, way upstream, to how we grow hemp in the first place.
So my premise really is before we can make hemp products, we really need to talk about how to grow them right from the beginning.
Her presentation laid bare the environmental stakes. What kind of fiber are we trying to scale here? One that lives up to hemp's eco-reputation, or one that slides into business as usual?
So we have this incredible opportunity at this point in production life where we can scale industrial hemp as an environmentally low-impact natural fiber. So the question, as I say, is does the hemp sector want to get on this same pesticide treadmill?
She's referencing cotton here, how cotton became the most pesticide-intensive crop in the U.S., with over 40 million pounds of active ingredients used annually. Sandra's warning was clear. Hemp doesn't have to follow that path, but it might, unless we choose differently.
This industry needs to develop a vision for how hemp should be grown right from the start. What's our story going to be? What's our vision? What's our inspiration? And Matt Dwyer at Patagonia kind of sums it up. With hemp production, the textile industry needs to apply hindsight as foresight. We must learn from the pesticide, fertilizer, water, biodiversity, and energy issues we faced with other fibers and apply that knowledge to prepare for the future.
Amen to that. Next up was Coleman Beale, founder of BastCore in Montgomery, Alabama.
So we're BastCore. We started this company in 2014. I'm fairly certain that makes us the oldest, at least continuously operating, hemp processor in the United States.
He gave a grounded look at what building a processing company from scratch really takes: slow growth, hands-on innovation, and a relentless focus on fiber quality.
We like to say our business model is pretty simple. We buy hemp bales directly from the farm, and then we've developed a unique proprietary processing system to us that focuses on a very high-quality fiber. And then at the end, we simply sell a bale of hemp, and then we also sell a herd product as well.
Then we veered into new territory. Satish Hodage, founder of YUJ Labs, brought what moderator Trey Riddle jokingly called mad scientist energy, but his work is rooted in practicality. His team is developing caustic-free, clean chemistry processing methods that use no petroleum-based inputs and generate almost zero toxic waste.
The other technology, what we basically are here to talk about, Aviracell, this is a unique fiber modification technology where we focus on modifying the lignin as it is in the fiber rather than taking it out in the system.
So is this a replacement for the degumming process?
So we talk about degumming. I call it's a fiber modification. I don't call it as a degumming because that's a term you're removing the gums. I'm not removing the gums. I'm keeping all those important materials in the fiber and modifying it to add value to those fibers.
Yeah, we do love added value. So next we turn to more cutting-edge fiber science, this time with Siyan Lee, a PhD student at NC State. She's working on enzymatic degumming. Her research asks, what if we could use naturally occurring enzymes to separate hemp fibers from the stalk without harsh chemicals at all?
My research is to seek the feasibility of applying enzymes in the degumming process.
Her work is part of a larger research push at NC State to define best practices and support fiber processing with real, data-backed science. Her work focuses on replacing harsh chemical degumming methods with enzymes using ultrasound and microbial digestion to break down fiber bundles more gently and more sustainably.
The ultrasonic pretreatment can help remove the weak points within the structure, so the enzyme will not focus on the weak points to cause uneven destroy of the fibers. You need to be really careful what enzymes you're using. You don't want to lose too much cellulose.
This kind of lab work won't become industry standard overnight, but that's what academia is for, right? To test what's possible, to push the boundaries, to stretch what's real, and to build standards the rest of the industry can stand on, grow businesses on, sell products to customers, which is exactly where Trey Riddle brings it back to.
So kind of coming back to some of that standards, the work at the ASTM is super critical. So we can all align on a terminology and a lexicon. So we can go out into the market, we can communicate to the customers around the same things. So we don't confuse our customers. We don't want to lose our customers. Because once we lose them, we may never get them back.
All right, so we're about halfway through the day on Tuesday, July 15th. People have just eaten their lunch, and now they're coming back into the summit room to listen to part 2 of processing, still moderated by Trey Riddle, but with a different sort of cast of characters. First, we're going to talk to John Peterson from Dakota Hemp in South Dakota.
Our little tiny state here in South Dakota, we've led the nation the last few years in acres planted, acres harvested, and yield, total production. So we can grow very good hemp up in our area. We're about 42 degrees.
John Peterson is an absolute force of nature up there in South Dakota. Education, farming, processing. Him and his team, they've gone around the state for years now, educating farmers sometimes like one at a time to bring them into farming hemp. And it's paid off because look, South Dakota is in the lead. But it's not a competition. When South Dakota wins, we all win.
And one of the last things we always like to compare to, if the whole U.S. was one big cornfield, how many Rhode Islands of hemp did we grow? And last year was the first year we officially went over one Rhode Island in the U.S. So thank you, hemp farmers. And maybe we can get to a Rhode Island and a half coming here very soon.
I've been to Rhode Island. It's the ocean state. I saw zero hemp there. The next speaker was John Lupian. He's sort of a hemp OG for sure. I think everybody knows him or knows the work that he's done over the years. He's been in it a long time. He's always doing something interesting. And now he's sort of resurfaced in Nebraska with a company called Consolidated Carbon.
Our mission at Consolidated is basically to make hemp the most profitable renewable commodity on Earth. The first piece of equipment's a decorticator. It's a little bit different from what people are normally used to seeing. It's a vertical type mill. It does refinement and opening in a very quick way where we get to a very open, almost cottonized fiber in one step.
So, there's a lot of talk of cottonization at this summit, and Trey Riddle kind of puts his finger on it here.
So unfortunately, we're at the point where we have to make hemp look like cotton to work in cotton systems.
So, spoiler alert, Dave Cook from Tuscarora Mills talks a bit about this cottonization process and how maybe we want to look into long fibers. So that happens a little bit later in this show. So stay tuned for Dave Cook from Tuscarora Mills challenging the notion of cottonization. The next speaker was Naden Kremenliev from Argon Fiber. He's talking about overcoming degumming barriers, hemp fiber processing at scale for textiles.
We bring in big rolls of fabric, we print on fabric, we dye fabric, and then we have another facility down in Greenville, South Carolina that cuts and sews fabric primarily into bandanas is our primary product. Work a lot with cotton, 100% cotton, so we're very familiar with that.
He offers a little more insight into why you might want to cottonize your hemp.
If you're going to want to put this fiber into these $1 million yarn spinning machines, whether it's open end, whether it's ring spun, whether it's vortex, you're going to want to make sure that this fiber is not going to mess up the machines. And I'm sure there's a few guys in here who could tell that they were not going to put it into their machines if they don't know that it's going to process properly.
Plus, he's got some sound advice on what it might take to scale.
If you're going to grow this part of the supply chain to scale, you've got to have the ability to process large volumes of water and large volumes of fiber product through a facility. So you can't do that in a 2,000 square foot garage. You need a large facility to do that. The degumming, it's a bottleneck from our perspective in the system. There's only a handful of folks that can actually do the degumming right now. We're trying to position ourselves as the only one specifically focused on hemp fiber. There are some other ones that will do some other FR treatments and other treatments to fiber. We're focused on hemp fiber and maximizing that. This has to be profitable for the whole chain, otherwise we're in deep trouble.
And finally, closing out the processing session with a talk called Creating High Added Value Nonwovens at Scale for Textiles. It's David Culp and Elias Junker from Andritz LaRoche. First up is David Culp.
Hey guys, so I know a lot of you guys, and I've got 20 plus years with the LaRoche side of things. I kind of bring that up from the standpoint of not everybody realizes that Andritz purchased LaRoche not too many years ago, about 4 years ago.
And then Elias explains what they do over there at Andritz.
Our expertise in three main fields. First field would be historical actor in textile waste recycling. We have been doing this for more than 100 years. Second big field of expertise is nonwovens. We have been making now for decades blending lines, and we have developed our own early technology. And the third field, and this is why I'm in front of you today, is basically bast fiber processing.
The next session, Tuesday afternoon, was all about textiles. We're going to hear from Ding Hong Liang from Hemp Vortex Industries in China, Maciej Kowalski from Kombinet Konopny in Poland, Dave Cook from Tuscarora Mills from here in Pennsylvania, Arlo Estill from Hemp Smith Clothing in North Carolina, and we hear from Dr. Andre West from NC State. First up is Ding from Hemp Vortex in China.
When I was little, my grandma used to grow hemp. The whole use for hemp is just a hemp twine and a rope. The twine is for shoes. The rope is just for anything you can use. But now hemp become a very commercialized, commodity. Even we think, this is hemp is already become quite a big number, but still, it's like a tiny percent of our textile industry. And even garments, textile industry is already huge, economy in the whole world, but hemp is still a tiny part. So that means, hemp has a huge potential for the future. In this presentation, I just give you a brief introduction is what we do in China. And everybody knows we're very strong in textile industry. For hemp, we have been using that for 1,000 years. In the past 40 years, we have been used, degumming by industrial scale degumming. So we are making really fine fiber. We are making really fine yarn, both in 100% hemp and hemp blended yarn. After harvesting, everybody knows we do field retting because this is a very important step for textile purpose. We used to do everything is like a water retting. Since 2012, our government is no longer allowed to do water retting anywhere in China because it makes the water polluted and smell bad.
This is such a fascinating look into hemp production in China, because I always heard that the retting process over there was chemical retting and it was really toxic and terrible for the environment. But from what Ding is saying, they changed their ways years ago now. Next up is Maciej Kowalski. If you've ever met him in person, you know that he's really a good guy. He's funny. He's really smart. And he is making stuff happen, right? Vertically integrated from farm to yarn. And it's really impressive what he does, and then also to hear him speak about it. I love hearing Magic talk about stuff.
And we do everything from seeding the seed to the ground, harvesting, decorticating, refining it, blending it with cotton and spinning it into yarn. Plenty of people speak about green decortication nowadays. We do it in a completely different way, which is winter retting. I don't really know why it works, but I'm very much in line with Steve Groff that experience beats scientific research. I don't know why it works. It's for someone else to decide.
Okay, we know that he's a huge fan of winter retting, but he's also a huge fan of vertical integration. That's what he's done from dirt to yarn.
If you go after fiber and sell unprocessed fiber, you can maybe hope for $1,000 per acre of revenue. So in order to make $1 million revenue, you need 1,000 acres. If you do the yarn, well, maybe you're looking at something closer to $5,000 per acre. If you're making fabric, you get to 10, 20K. If you're making finished good and you sell them directly to the customer, cutting off all the middlemen, you're making 50K out of acre. And then you need 20 acres to get $1 million revenue.
Magic has opinions on pretty much everything and everyone, including this idea that Guy Carpenter floated a while ago that cotton is hemp's best friend and hemp is cotton's best friend. But Maciej sees it otherwise.
I'd say denim is the best friend of hemp and hemp is the best friend of denim.
There you go. You heard it here from Magic Kowalski on The Hemp Show. Something else you're going to hear right now on The Hemp Show is Dave Cook from Tuscarora Mills, sort of throwing down a challenge to the industry.
Today, I'm asking all of you to consider working against the grain in this effort with long line hemp fiber and yarn as a counterpoint to the short cottonized hemp fiber we're so familiar with today. Why cottonized hemp isn't working yet in America? The focus of American hemp textiles to date has been processing the long, strong, and substantive fiber into one akin to short staple cotton compatible with the modern cotton-centric spinning infrastructure we find here in the United States. We keep trying to push short fiber hemp into the market, extolling all of hemp's strengths. But in fact, all we've really been offering the market is the hyped word hemp when it comes to most hemp textile products. Hemp is a performance material, and the question I want to ask you all today is, why are we always trying to turn it into cotton? We are asking a proven premium performance material to play by cotton's commodity rules. And that doesn't elevate hemp, it actually weakens it. Cottonized hemp is a compromise, not of necessity, but of convenience and lack of innovation and investment on our part as Americans here in the United States. Longline fiber exemplifies all the characteristics and promise of hemp by maintaining the integrity of the fiber we read about every day. Strength, durability, versatility, circularity in design and life cycle. We need to stop pretending that just having hemp in the mix is enough to drive demand. Hemp's value is what it enables and delivers, not just what it claims. And Lord knows we've all made a lot of claims about hemp and textiles.
That was a speech to remember, a really big speech to remember.
That is Dr. Andre West, who followed Dave in the presentation. Andre West is also a long fiber guy, and he was psyched to know that Dave Cook is out there. And hats off to Dave. That's a really brave thing to do. One, it's not easy to get up there and just give a presentation in front of a room full of strangers. But two, when you know that you have an idea that is going to be possibly unpopular or definitely like goes against the grain of everything else that's happening. So hats off to you, Dave Cook at Tuscarora Mills, for playing the long game, the long fiber game, and for saying what people need to hear. So thank you. And then next we hear from a young entrepreneur out of North Carolina, a guy by the name of Arlo Still, who's got a hemp clothing company called Hempsmith.
Our mission is to bring hemp home. And so I have a vision inspired by Eric Henry and TS Designs for a local supply chain. And so in the game, we want to be sourcing from local Carolina farmers and having it processed and create the garment, dirt to shirt, like within 100 miles or something crazy like that. We're like the final end of the supply chain, right? Like seeing you all and hearing these presentations has really been interesting. And I'm like, kind of not a part of that. We source the blank hemp clothing and then we put our name on it pretty much. And so there is demand for this product. There's a lot of buzz out there for hemp clothing and people are interested. they know a little something, but they're not too well educated. So I do get a lot of like, can I smoke your shirts and stuff, right? Like, so I'm not competing with you, I am collaborating. And so if someone could just bring me like a local hemp t-shirt that I can buy, that'd be sweet.
Yeah, so Arlo, he's not asking for miracles. He's just asking for a shirt. He's ready to buy wholesale. He's got a storefront, a story, and a local community behind him. But what he doesn't have yet is a consistent, reliable domestic supply chain. The final session on Tuesday at the Industrial Hemp Fiber Summit took us deep into the world of composites and building materials, where innovation, research, and industrial hemp collide. It began with Matty Mead. You know Matty, he's been on the show a bunch. He's the founder and CEO of Hempitecture. He reminded us why we're doing this work in the first place, because the built environment is one of the biggest climate problems we face.
40% of our domestic carbon emissions, they come from buildings and their operations, and a lot of that is made up through embodied carbon. So I asked the question, why and how do we solve that problem? Of the many solutions that are out there, I found industrial hemp.
And then he shares this little nugget from the Hempitecture creation myth.
I stood on stage at my college's pitch competition in 2013, and I said, we found it. Hemp building materials, that's going to be the future. I was absolutely laughed at, booed off the stage.
Oh, how times have changed. The room was packed with people who want to hear what Matty has to say. Engineers, academics, farmers, processors, people from every part of the value chain. And one of the key people helping hold that chain together is Trey Riddle from IND HEMP.
Trey and I go way back. He's not just a colleague. I'd also consider him, at points, a friend. But Trey's business, IND HEMP, and the team that they have in Fort Benton, Montana, they are a critical piece of the supply chain, not just for my business, Hempitecture, which is a non-woven manufacturer, but to so many other companies across the United States.
Thanks, Matty. And since we are friends, I can say thank you for wearing that jacket. It really dresses up that stash. There's a lot of love in here. I just want you all to know that.
Trey Riddle isn't a dreamer, he's a visionary, and he shared one of his visions with the room.
But my dream is that when we get to Walmart, we can buy something that hemp is in it and we don't even know it because it was the right material at the right price and it changed the way our things are made.
But dreams don't materialize without collaboration.
So we really need to develop relationships and we really need to develop partnerships. I don't mean partnerships in the business sense of the word. I just mean it in the spirit of the word. That we're united on a goal, that we're all headed in the same direction, because that's what's going to take to get it done.
As a self-described recovering composites engineer, Trey then gave the room a crash course in what composites are and why hemp belongs in them.
So, textbook definition of a composite. It is a material that's made from two or more different materials. What does it do? It creates a new material with properties that are better. The sum of the total, is sort of greater than its individual parts.
He talked about fiber compatibility, feedstock variation, and how hard it is to drop hemp into existing systems. Still, IND HEMP is making it work.
Hurd is in the Harley-Davidson electric motorcycle, the live wire. It's a hurd-filled polypropylene composite for the fenders.
Yeah, so IND HEMP has a lot of cool stuff happening there in Fort Benton, Montana. So the next speaker in this session is Dr. Daniel Volchik from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in New York.
Engineers, designers that are working with these materials, it drives us nuts. We don't want variability. We want to know, okay, it's got this tensile strength within plus or minus 5%. If you're talking plus or minus 50%, we're not going to use that. We're going to use a synthetic material. So we've got to get that under control.
To address that variability, Dan and his team developed a process called bioalloying.
What we do with bioalloying is adding trace amounts of other materials to kind of improve the properties, but you could also kind of minimize the error bars by doing this.
And in a stroke of engineered practicality, he gave us a peek at hemp-based rebar, manufactured using a process called pultrusion.
We wanted to take hemp yarn and a recycled filament. And we use this process called pultrusion, which Trey talked about, to make it in a continuous manner.
And he closed by reminding us that being behind in processing isn't all bad.
The U.S. is far behind many countries in the world in hemp processing technology, no fault of our own. It's a curse and a blessing. It's a curse because we have to play catch up. But it's a blessing because we don't know any better. What I mean by that is that we basically have a blank slate.
Finally, we heard from Katie Copenhaver, R&D staff at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. She downplayed her expertise a little bit when she took the mic.
I think I can say with confidence that I'm the dumbest person in the room when it comes to hemp. I just put stuff in plastic.
But what followed was a masterclass in composite manufacturing. Katie explained that one of the biggest problems is how we process hemp, especially in high shear systems that destroy fiber length.
Like others before me said, in composites, we really want long fibers. We want stress transfer because that's the whole point of a reinforcement, right, is for the fiber to add something. So when you put a natural fiber in a system like this, or really any kind of stiff fiber, you get a lot of breakage.
So she built a new approach using wet-laid non-woven sheets layered into high-performance preforms.
I compared the non-woven materials that we made to the melt mix materials, and then we also had a goal of trying to prove that we can compete with glass fiber polypropylene composites. And you can see in every case, the hemp fiber is competing with glass fiber.
And she reminded the audience that what composite engineers want isn't the same thing as what textile mills want.
For composites, we want something totally different than what you guys have been talking about for textiles. I want the fiber to be rough and stiff. I want it to be as strong as possible. I don't want you to take any of the stuff out to soften it. I want it to be long. I want it to carry a load.
Yeah, I guess that's the long and short of it. So that's sort of how Tuesday ended, although Matty Mead came back on stage and he dropped a little nugget of insight.
This opportunity, it's transcending the niche, it's transcending the fringe. This is something that we can bring to the forefront in so many different areas.
Yeah, that's true. And I went to Raleigh sort of as a witness, and I saw this happening in real time, right? They are transcending the niche. All right, so that was Tuesday at the summit. It was a full day, started early in the morning. It went until about 5 o'clock, and then there was like a mixer at a pizza place later. It was great to see everybody. And then Wednesday morning, we met over at the college, and we all got on buses, and we rolled through the North Carolina countryside, and we first went out to NC State's Cherry Research Station, where we saw hemp field trials and test plots. It was a beautiful morning. I love going out to these field days, especially with people who have never been to a hemp field before. It's great to see them. Everyone loves to take a hemp selfie. So good. Anyway, the work they're doing at North Carolina State is fantastic, so hats off to David Suchoff and the crew down there. From there, we went to Lumberton, North Carolina, down the road a bit, to Biofill Natural Fibers, where a nearly operational processing facility is coming to life inside just a big old building, right? It was hot outside, there was thunderstorms happening, but inside there was a lot of fans and there was a lot of food. And oh boy, I thought they were lima beans, but man, they were butter beans. We don't have butter beans up here. Please, North Carolina people, tell me more about these butter beans. So anyway, together these visits on Wednesday gave us a real-world glimpse of the hemp value chain, the plant, the people, the infrastructure. So by the time Thursday morning rolled around, the value chain wasn't just a concept, it was something that we had walked through, touched, stood inside. NIHC President Patrick Atagi kicked things off with a metaphor.
How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So we parsed it down from fiber and grain to just specifically fiber, and we still had a sold-out meeting.
Well, let's be clear about one thing here. There were no elephants. It was just a metaphor. There were no elephants in the room. Oh, actually, no. Intoxicating cannabinoids may have been the elephant in the room, but there were no elephants being served at breakfast or at lunch. So I just want to, put that out there. No elephants. It was a metaphor, people. Come on, lighten up. Okay, anyway, the first featured speaker of the day was Mark Dessa, Senior VP of Business Development at Panda Biotech down there in Wichita Falls, Texas. With a background in the global apparel industry, Mark emphasized the irreplaceable value of trust and follow-through.
We wouldn't have whatever small degree of success we've achieved without something called relationships. Finding the right partners at every stage is imperative.
So he made it clear, if you're trying to stand up a domestic hemp industry, the relationship between farmer and processor is critical.
If the growers don't have good processes, there will be no offtake. We saw what happened on the cannabinoid or the marijuana side of the business. There was a surplus of growth, and the demand wasn't there, the offtake wasn't there. The consequences of that have left farmers in a state of skepticism. Getting that right relationship and trust in place was important. Initially, it was like pushing water uphill. But after 2 years of sticking to our commitments, talk about relationships and partnerships, the farmers now have seen, oh, this neighbor grew that crop, and this guy, Scott Evans, paid him the money for growing it. What he did with it, we don't know, but he's honored his commitment, So now we've got farmers that have the confidence that there are processes like IND HEMP, Panda Biotech, who will make a commitment and who'll honor it. So building those relationships is a cornerstone to building up your business in the hemp industry.
Mark also looked ahead to a market opportunity that's knocking at the door.
The potential for hemp fiber, it's tremendous. Denim is low-hanging fruit. There's 450 million pairs of jeans sold every year in the United States. There's almost 500,000 pounds of yarn that's required. If we can get just 20% of that to adopt hemp, and if that's only 30% hemp, that's more than all the processors in this room can produce.
From relationships to product, Joseph Carrigan has been working in the hemp space since 1997. I spent some time with Joseph down in Raleigh. We went out for tacos one night. Really fascinating story. His whole life story is amazing. He's got such amazing perspective to offer to this space. Anyway, he was the next presenter on Thursday morning, and his talk was called Sound Strategy, Building the Hemp Industry Through Real Products and Consumer Demand.
So I'm happy to tell you this morning you're looking at, why I'm walking around, is a long fiber, wet spun, 100% hemp selvage denim jean woven in the United States at Tuscarora Mills.
The focus of his talk was what he called Hemp 3.0. A stage where we stop chasing shiny objects and start building to spec.
And version 3.0 is when we start bringing together the agriculture, the infrastructure of processing with manufacturing. And we start investing in product development specific to manufacturing, to those manufacturing needs.
All right, so obviously Joseph had a whole lot more to say about how to reach the consumer than just that short little soundbite. And you can hear the entire presentation when NC State publishes the entire conference on their website in a couple of weeks. But, like I mentioned in the front of the show, I think I did anyway, that I conducted a lot of interviews while I was there. I walked around in between sessions and talked to people. I think I interviewed almost 40 people, including Joseph Carrigan, and we learned a whole lot more about him. So stay tuned for that episode. It'll be the one that I publish after this. So, okay, moving on. Next, we're going to hear from Larry Serbin, another hemp OG. I think Joseph would call him Hemp 1.0 OG because he's been in this space since the 90s. The 1990s, not the 1790s.
In 1793, Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin, and it basically created the modern cotton industry. What does this actually have to do with hemp?
Larry's point is that technology unlocks markets, and right now, the industry needs machines that work in the field, not just in the processing facility.
When we talk about green decortication, we're talking about being able to harvest and decorticate the hemp in the field as it's being grown.
Because if farmers can process at harvest, their margins go up dramatically.
Originally, we had the farmer earning $800 per acre, but if the farmer is now harvesting and decorticating right on the farm, he's going to be able to sell both the basket fiber and the herd ready to go. His income increases from around $800 per acre to $2,000 per acre.
That's a pretty good increase. Is it going to work? We're all waiting to see if green decortication is a thing. Hope so. Next up, it's Gabriella Fioravante. She's from Jefferson University, where she's analyzing how cultivation practices impact fiber quality.
The no-till systems and the lower nitrogen input systems actually led to superior quality fiber. This suggests that regenerative practices not only support soil health, but improve fiber strength and flexibility.
Yeah, this is great news, and I know she's working with the folks up there at the Rodale Institute in Berks County, Pennsylvania. Next up was Olaf Izela, CTO of Trace Femcare. He drilled down on a recurring theme in Raleigh, the need for common standards and a common language.
Strategy requires attention to detail, and success requires a common language.
He warned that most existing textile quality benchmarks, from cotton to wool, don't actually fit hemp, which means we're going to have to write our own rules.
So the methods that exist for other fibers like cotton or wool don't apply to us, right? So we need to create a new language for us.
And finally, at the end of this session, we hear from Erica Stark from the National Hemp Association and Pierre Berard from HEMI, the Hemp Education Marketing Initiative. Pierre started with the blunt reality that hemp isn't one industry, it's two. But he does it in such a luxurious French accent, you can hardly tell he's using the word bifurcation.
We believe it starts with the bifurcation of the industry and between fiber and grain and cannabinoids. And why? Because it's very different regulatory concepts, and it's also like very different supply chains. We don't even have the same clients. So this is absolutely a must.
And Erica makes a call for unity and transparency.
And we're trying to coordinate those efforts to develop the standards, track the market and performance data, and policy tools, like USDA and DOE programs, to try to help accelerate the growth. And this is the type of coordination that we think will be essential to breaking the isolation that a lot of companies do feel.
The value chain, it turns out, isn't just a sequence of transactions. It's a series of human relationships between growers, processors, researchers, engineers, and investors, each dependent on the other to keep the chain intact. So as you know, or as I hope you know, the National Hemp Association is a sponsor of this show. They've been a sponsor of this show for several years, and they've always been supportive of what I do here. And also HEMI, the Hemp Education Marketing Initiative, is a new sponsor. And I get a good sense HEMI is going to be the thing that unites the voices of this industry. So if you get a chance, go check out hempinitiatives.org. Become a member. It would make sense for you to join up in the Hemp Education and Marketing Initiative, right? Yeah, so that's my plug for my sponsors here at the end of the show. And, you know, while I'm doling out the gratitude, again, huge shout out of thanks to Patrick Atagi and the National Industrial Hemp Council of America for organizing this event and for sponsoring my travel there. So it was great to be there. So anyway, we're not quite done yet. The summit wasn't totally over once the speakers were done. After the break, there was a round table sort of speed dating style networking thing, which seemed kind of terrifying to me, but people sat at tables and asked each other questions. My preferred method of that is walking around with headphones and a microphone asking people questions, so that's what I did. And I will be publishing those interviews on the next episode of The Hemp Show. But anyway, after that speed dating networking event, there was a panel discussion with some brands. I am not going to play clips from that, but it was Ann Wiper from the NSF Textile Innovation Engine in North Carolina was the moderator, and Sue Jesh from Pact Organic and Saif Islam from Carhartt were there. So that was interesting to hear the brand perspective on things. Because that's the difference about this summit, is that big brands were in attendance. I mean, I guess there were some bigger brands at the Montana Hemp Summit last year and the year before, but it seemed like there was more. There was just a greater sense of legitimacy in the industry this year, and I guess having it at the greatest textile college in the world there at NC State didn't hurt. So anyway, that's the summit in a nutshell. Like I said before, these sessions will be available on the NC State website at some point soon. I will let you know, and I'll put a link to them. All right, that's it for me today. There will be more coverage of the NIHC Global Industrial Hemp Fiber Summit on next week's show. Probably do a few special episodes. I don't know. I'm not promising you anything, because I feel like I've done that before and I just let you down. So anyway, I hope you like this, right? I liked it. I love these hemp events. I love talking to people about hemp. All right, so my name is Eric Herlock. I am the senior digital editor here at Lancaster Farming Newspaper, the greatest agricultural newspaper in the world. Check us out online at lancasterfarming.com. You can get a subscription to our print edition. Yeah, that's right. A printed newspaper will show up at your house or your farm or your business every week. Yeah, because that's what my team does. We make a newspaper. And it's fantastic. And it's all about farming, and it's everything you want. So there's that. Also, on our website, you can sign up for the hemp newsletter, right? Do that. And hey, special thanks to Andy Click and his team of AV and IT professionals there at the Wilson College of Textiles at NC State. Andy was able to get me the audio of the speaker sessions in a really timely manner, and I could not have made this episode without you, Andy Click. So yeah, thank you. Appreciate you. What else? I don't know. I'm a little delirious from all of this talking and traveling, so I'm gonna just zip it now. Till next time, see you in the newspaper.
And I like to close with the words of Nelson Mandela. It always seems impossible until it's done.
This episode of the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast is copyright 2025 by Lancaster Farming Newspaper, part of the Steinman Communications family. Today's show was written and recorded by Eric Herlock and engineered, mixed, and produced and all that by Justin Berger.